Here's a really quick video request from Mr. Heavy Metal Dude. He goes, Kyle, how are you? I'm good, thank you. Next video request, I'm not sure if you've talked about this yet, but what do you think cars in general will be like in the future? Let's say 20 to 30 years from now, thanks. And have a nice day. Cool, man. That's an interesting video request. I thought I'd already done it, so I typed cars, and it turns out I haven't done this one, so. Yeah, what do you think cars will be like in 20 or 30 years? Alright, well, I think generally in the future cars will be kind of a one-size-fits-all type. They'll all kind of look the same. They'll all look like a minivan. I think the only reason that vans aren't the most popular car out there is because we haven't reached that level of technology yet where we figured out to make vans as like reliable as other cars and as maintenance, low-cost maintenance. The lowest cost of maintenance kind of car to have is your typical four-door sedan, because you just open up the big hood and there's that engine right there, easy to work on, everything's spread out. And with a van, man, like my van, it's got these all these tubes that have to go really far from the engine way in the back to the front, and that you have to replace all the time, and that get leaky, and you have to jam pack everything in there, so it's harder and expensive to work on. And but the fact of the matter is that van, and especially, you know, in normal four-door sedan type of cars, they can handle better, you know. But in the future, when we figure out to make the van type of car handle really well and, you know, cheap to work on and reliable and everything, that's the best kind of car to have, because you can put stuff in it. It's a pain in the ass to have a car. I couldn't imagine having a car. Like when I moved here, I filled my van up so many times, and when I moved my brother's stuff out of his storage, I filled it up, and then he can live out of it, and it's just so utilitarian. The idea of having a normal car, I think, will be ridiculous in 20 years. So I think in 20 years, by far the most common kind of car is going to be the minivan type of car, where you have the engine not taking up very much space up in the front, and then the whole car is just this big bubble. And then the inside is just this big inside with the seats you can take in and put out, the sliding door on the side, the hatchback door on the back, and it'll just be a matter of how big those minivan type of cars are. You'll have the smaller ones, but then, you know, in the future you'll have, I think in 20 to 30 years, pretty much all cars will be electric, and electricity will be cheap and affordable. So the size of it won't really make that much sense to have a tiny little minivan type of car. I think all the cars, almost all of them, will be, you know, around like the size of my van, my Volkswagen van. They'll be a full-size van, and those are going to be the cars that people use. And you know, by then the parking won't be that big of a deal, because we'll have the machines do the parking, like in Japan, vending machine parking lots. And so that's what they'll look like. We'll all be driving around in these vans, these aerodynamic-looking vans that are electric-powered. We already have electric-powered cars nowadays. You've got the Tesla, which is doing really well. You know, I think when Obama gave a grant to the Tesla car company, it's actually paying off. And there's the library over in Lafayette, when I was living this summer, they have a plug-in for electric cars, and with this big windmill right next to it, which I think powers it. When I was in Austin, they had a bunch of parking places for the electric cars to plug in. So imagine in 10 years how many there'll be. So in 20 and 30 years, yeah, most cars will be electric powered, I think. I'd like to keep my van around so I don't have to get another engine put in. The next engine I put in is an electric engine. I can just turn my van into an electric car. And I think in the future also, people will be, in 20, 30 years, people will be outfitting cars that we have now with electric engines. There'll be all kinds of people who'll figure out how to do that. And so, you know, if you're buying, so Japanese cars won't be around anymore, because they build cars with crappy metal that just deteriorate. But the Germans, like my van, who build cars to last, they'll be going in the junkyards, you know, and getting these old 70s Volkswagen vans, which were built really well, and just throwing them on the road. Because people also like style, and they like nostalgia and all that. And so people will definitely be taking advantage of that and putting electric engines in old cars, all kinds of old cars. And then they'll even get really expensive. They'll develop a really good value, and people who own junkyards will actually become really rich by selling these things. And so yeah, if you have a big backyard and you have an old van out there, leave it, dude. Hang on to that thing, because it'll be worth a lot in the future. It'll be a museum piece that's not just a museum piece. It'll be a museum piece that's actually useful in driving around. Because people, we like to recycle, and metal could get a lot more expensive anyways in the future to build stuff as we exhaust our minds. So, and all the cars in the future will be plastic, and so people will have that nostalgia for the metal car, and they'll, so. But yeah, in the future they'll be, but also, I don't think most cars will be like that, because we'll have all sorts of other new technology, safety technology, like airbags and self-driving cars, I think. In fact, I had a dream last night. I've had a bunch of dreams actually recently about self-driving cars. I think it was just last night I had one, where you just go to sleep and it follows the road, and it even stops. Because I remember we stopped and I woke up and I was like, oh shit, we fell asleep. The car is only programmed to stay in the lanes. So cars will beginning in 20 years will be programmed to stay in the lane just fine, but you have to still be awake to stop it. I mean, and they'll stop to not hit a car in front of them, but it won't. When it gets to a red light, I guess it'll keep going straight. So you have to wake up. But yeah, in 20 to 30 years, I think. In 30 years, we'll have the beginning of a situation where all you have to do is type in where you want to go, and the car will just drive you there, and you don't even have to do it. But those will be in experimental cities, little towns. It won't be widespread. In 100 years, it'll be all over. But I mean, the world could change a lot faster than that, though. I mean, in 30 years, if we invite the aliens down, we could get those anti-gravity spaceships, which is pretty simple technology. We could build that pretty cheaply. All it is revolving discs of element 115 that go around in opposite counter-rotating. And there you go. You've got a car that can fly. And then there's probably some other technology they could give us that would actually propel you in a free energy type of a way. So then cars actually that drive on the road will be kind of obsolete for longer trips. It'll be really interesting though to see how it all fits together though, like where cars that stay on the ground, what are those are best for, what trains are best for, underground trains, what flying cars are best for, how it all fits together in a complex puzzle. That'd be really interesting to think about. That takes actual thinking to try to figure out, but it'll be a very slow process. So every kind of situation imaginable will be utilized. But in 20 to 30 years, most of the cars are going to be electric, I think, and pretty much all of the new cars are going to be in the minivan format, but I guess that's cars, A flying car, I guess, would always be called a plane anyway. So you didn't say personal vehicle, you said cars. So that's what I think. That's what I think we'll have. What color will they be? They'll be every color rainbow, and they'll be painted. You'll have the opportunity to have it painted in a custom paint job that a computer will do. So you just give the painting. You paint. What they do is they'll give you a model that's this big. You'll paint the model. You'll give the model in, and then for an extra $1,000 or whatever, they'll have the computer painted exactly how you painted your car, and all the cars, most of the cars will be very personalized with the paint job. So when you see a car driving, because all the cars will be the same model, they'll all be minivans. So it'll make them all look the same. You won't be able to identify people who look boring, and that's how people will make it personalized with the paint jobs. They'll look off in the distance. They'll be like, "Oh, there's Jennifer's car," because it says Jennifer on it. You know, "Oh, there's Susie's car because it's painted like a cow." You know. So yeah, I should paint my car all different colors to help bring that trend sooner. I painted my old van, my '71 van, all crazy like that. But yeah, that's what I think. Peace out.